The council chambers had never been so divided. Councillor Jethro stood at the central platform and watched as delegates screamed at each other across the room. Some demanded war against the humans, despite the obvious impossibility of such action. Others called for immediate acceptance of all terms without negotiation. Several species threatened to withdraw from the council entirely rather than admit that they had been outmaneuvered by a species they had dismissed as inferior for 3 centuries. Fleet Commander Ziran had resigned in disgrace. Intelligence Chief Morvan was facing investigation for failing to detect the human preparations. High Arbiter Seleth sat in exhausted silence, watching her life's work threaten to collapse around her. Jethro raised his hand and waited for quiet. It took longer than usual. I have seen Hollow Point, he said when the noise finally died down. I have met the humans who built it. They are not our enemies. They never were. They were our partners who asked for nothing more than basic dignity, and we refused to give it to them. A Kelthani delegate shouted from the back of the chamber. They sabotaged our infrastructure. They killed our soldiers. Jethro turned to face him. They killed no one who was not trying to take what belonged to them. Every death occurred because we chose to occupy their worlds against their will. Every malfunction was a consequence of our own greed. The chamber fell silent. Jethro continued. I have spent the past week reviewing human history. Do you know what I found? A species that survived extinction events on their homeworld. A species that learned to cooperate across tribal boundaries because they had no choice. A species that developed technology, not to conquer others, but to solve problems that would have destroyed them otherwise. He paused and looked around. At the assembled delegates, we looked at their short lives and assumed they were impatient. Instead, they were efficient. We looked at their small bodies and assumed they were weak. Instead, they were adaptable. We looked at their willingness to help and assumed they were naive. Instead, they were strategic. The words hung in the air. The humans spent 60 years building Hollow Point while pretending to be junior partners in our civilization. 60 years of planning and construction and sacrifice, all because they knew that someday we would show our true nature. And when we did, they were ready. Seleth spoke for the first time in hours. What do you recommend, Counselor? Jethro took a deep breath. I recommend we accept their terms. All of them. And I recommend we do it not because we have no choice, but because it is the right thing to do. The vote was called. It was closer than Jethro had hoped, but in the end the motion passed. The council would accept human terms and formally recognize them as equal partners in galactic civilization. 3 months later, Director Patricia Lane stood at the same central platform where Jethro had made his speech. She wore simple clothing without any symbols of rank or power. Her voice was calm as she addressed the assembled delegates. Humanity does not want dominion, she said. We have no interest in ruling over other species or dictating how they should live. We wanted partnership without condescension. We wanted our contributions to be valued rather than exploited. We wanted to be seen as friends rather than resources. She smiled slightly. Now we have that. And we intend to earn it every day. The restoration began immediately. Human engineers worked alongside alien technicians to repair the systems they had compromised. Navigation networks were recalibrated. Banking algorithms were reset. Communication arrays were restored to full function. The humans did not gloat or demand gratitude. They simply did the work. Commander Samuel Drew supervised the return of human colonists to their worlds. Ships that had been hidden at Hollow Point for years finally emerged into open space, carrying families who had sacrificed everything for a plan they might never live to see completed. Drew watched them go with quiet pride. Young delegate Nerith found Counselor Yeth, Rahl standing alone at an observation window in the council chambers. Outside, Human vessels moved freely through shipping lanes for the first time in months. How did we miss it? Nerith asked. How did we fail to see what they were capable of? Yet, Ral did not look away from the window. We made the oldest mistake in galactic politics. We assumed that quiet meant weak. We assumed that patience meant submission. We assumed that kindness meant stupidity. And none of it was true. None of it was ever true. They stood together in comfortable silence, watching the ships pass Dot in the garden district of a restored human colony. Director Lane knelt beside a Varani child who had come with a cultural exchange delegation. The little girl had large dark eyes and pale blue skin, and she looked at Lane with the innocent curiosity of youth. Are the humans angry at us? The child asked. Lane considered the question carefully. No, she said finally. We were never angry. We were tired of being underestimated. The child tilted her head. What does that mean? Lane smiled and gestured at the garden around them. It means that we wanted people to see us clearly, to understand that we have value, to know that we belong here just as much as anyone else. The child nodded slowly. My teacher says humans are strange because you live such short lives, but you plan for such long futures. Lane laughed softly. That is probably the most accurate thing anyone has ever said about us. She stood and looked up at the sky, where human ships moved among the stars, flying under their own flag and their own protocols, recognized at last as equals among the species of the galaxy. The universe was vast and full of wonders. Humanity had always known this. They had also known that finding their place among those wonders would require patience and preparation and sacrifice. It had taken 300 years and 60 years of secret planning, but they had finally achieved what they always wanted. Not conquest, not dominion, not revenge, just respect. And that was enough. The child took Lane's hand, and they walked together through the garden. Two small figures against the endless sky. Proof that even the quietest voices could change the universe if they refused to be silenced. The humans had left without a sound. Now they returned with a promise. They would never be silent again. The diplomatic vessel emerged from subspace into absolute darkness. Counselor Jethro stood at the observation window and saw nothing but empty void in every direction. No stars, no planets, no navigation markers. The humans had chosen a meeting place that existed in the spaces, between galaxies where no one ever traveled, because there was nothing to find. Then the station appeared. It materialized from the darkness like a creature waking from deep sleep. The structure was enormous, larger than any space station Jethro had ever seen, and it glowed with soft golden light that reminded him of human skin in sunlight. Ships surrounded it in careful formations, hundreds of vessels that had been hidden from galactic detection for decades. Envoy Kathsara gasped beside him. She was young and passionate, a member of the Varani peace faction who had insisted on joining the delegation. How long have they been building this? Ryle shook his head slowly. Long enough. Their vessel was guided to a docking port by automated systems that the pilot could not override. When the airlock opened, two humans were waiting for them. The first was a tall man with broad shoulders and graying hair cut short in military style. The second was a woman with kind eyes and silver streaks in her dark hair. The man spoke first. I am Commander Samuel Drew. This is Director Patricia Lane. Welcome to Hollow Point. Jethro stepped forward. I am Counselor Jethro. I oppose Protocol 17. Samuel Drew studied him for a moment. We know. That is why we agreed to meet with you. They were led through corridors that hummed with life and activity. Human workers passed them without hostility, but also without warmth. Children ran through open spaces playing games that Jethro did not recognize. Families sat together in common areas eating meals and talking quietly. It was not a military installation. It was as City Director Lane walked beside Jethro as they moved deeper into the station. "You seem surprised." "Counselor Dodd, I expected a military command center," Jethro admitted. "Not this." Lane smiled slightly. "That is the difference between your people and mine. When we prepare for conflict, we do not just build weapons. We build homes for our families, schools for our children, gardens where we can remember what we are fighting for." They entered a conference room with wide windows overlooking the station's central garden. Green plants filled the space below, tended by humans who worked the soil with their bare hands, even though automation could have done the job more efficiently. Commander Drew gestured for them to sit. "Let us discuss terms." The negotiations began. Director Lane presented the human demands clearly and without emotion. Full withdrawal from all occupied territories. Formal recognition of human sovereignty extending 3 systems beyond their original borders. Complete dissolution of Protocol 17 in the public. Acknowledgement that the Council had violated human rights by activating it. Envoy Kathsara leaned forward. "These terms seem excessive." "The Council made a mistake. Yes, but surely we can find a middle ground." Lane's expression did not change. "With respect, Envoy, you are not in a position to negotiate middle ground." Commander Drew activated a display that filled the wall behind him. It showed a map of galactic civilization with human-influenced systems highlighted in blue. The color spread across nearly half of the known galaxy. Human engineers have worked on every major infrastructure project in Council space for 2 centuries, Drew said. "We did not do this to harm anyone. We did it because we were genuinely trying to help. But along the way, we made sure that if anyone ever tried to take what was ours by force, we would have options." Jethro stared at the map. "You could destroy us all." "Yes," Lane said simply. "We could collapse your banking systems, disable your communication networks, corrupt your navigation data until ships crash into stars and planets. We could bring galactic civilization to its knees within a year." She paused and met Jethro's eyes directly. "But we do not want to." Kathsara's voice was barely a whisper. "Then why show us this? Why make us afraid?" Drew answered before Lane could speak. "Because fear is the only language the Council has ever understood. For 300 years, we asked to be treated as equals. We submitted formal requests. We followed proper procedures. We did everything your institutions required, and you ignored us every single time. Now you are listening because you have no choice." Jethro felt the weight of those words pressing down on him. He remembered every Council session where human concerns had been dismissed, every vote where human interests had been sacrificed for the convenience of larger powers, every moment when he himself had stayed silent because challenging the status quo seemed pointless. "We were wrong," he said quietly. The room went still. Lane and Drew exchanged glances. Jethro continued. "The Council was arrogant. We saw your kindness as weakness. We saw your patience as submission. We were wrong about all of it." Lane studied him for a long moment. "Do you speak for the Council?" "No." Jethro shook his head. "But I speak for myself. And I will spend whatever time I have left ensuring that others understand what I now understand." Drew's expression softened slightly. "You have 48 hours to return to the Council with our terms. If they accept, we will restore the systems we compromised and return to galactic society as equal partners. If they refuse, we will withdraw further and let the consequences unfold naturally." "What consequences?" Kathsara asked. Lane rose from her seat and walked to the window overlooking the gardens. Below, a human child was learning to plant seeds under the guidance of an elderly woman. "The consequences of trying to survive without the species you spent centuries underestimating," Lane said. "We are not asking for dominion. We are not asking for revenge. We are asking for something very simple. She turned back to face them. We are asking for respect. Jethro stood and bowed his head, a gesture of acknowledgement that predated the council itself. You will have it, he said, or I will die trying to give it to you. He meant every word. The Galactic Council chambers had never felt so cold. Councilor Jethro sat in his seat and watched the reports flood in from 17 occupied worlds. Every single one told the same story. Infrastructure that turned hostile. Systems that failed in precise sequences designed to cause maximum disruption. And always no direct casualties unless the occupation forces refused to leave. The humans were not trying to kill them. They were trying to teach them a lesson. Intelligence Chief Morvan stood at the center platform presenting his findings. The Kelthani spy master was one of the most feared figures in galactic politics, and even he looked shaken by what his agents had discovered. The humans began modifying their systems approximately 60 years ago. Morvan said, every upgrade they shared with other species, every trade agreement that included technology transfers, every cooperative project that placed human engineers in foreign facilities, all of it was part of a larger strategy. High Arbiter Seleth leaned forward in her seat. The ancient Varani judge had presided over the council's legal matters for 3 centuries. Are you saying the humans planted sabotage in our own infrastructure? Morvan hesitated before answering. Not sabotage in the traditional sense. The systems function perfectly as long as certain conditions are met. But those conditions are defined by human protocols. When we activated Protocol 17 and declared human territory open for occupation, we triggered a response that was waiting for exactly that action. The chamber erupted in angry shouts. Delegates accused each other of negligence and demanded investigations into how the humans had operated so freely for so long. Fleet Commander Ziron sat in rigid silence, his face a mask of controlled fury. He had championed Protocol 17. He had led the occupation effort. Now he watched his career crumbling before his eyes. Jethro raised his hand for order. Let the intelligence chief finish. Morvan nodded gratefully. The most serious issue is not the occupied worlds. Our forces can withdraw, and the immediate danger will pass. The serious issue is everything else. He activated a display that showed financial networks spanning the galaxy. Red warning indicators pulsed at countless nodes throughout the system. Human-designed. Algorithms manage approximately 40% of galactic banking infrastructure. Over the past week, those algorithms have begun rerouting development funds into accounts that no longer exist. Trade payments are being delayed. Investment portfolios are experiencing unexplained losses. Nothing catastrophic yet, but the pattern is clear. The humans can crash our economy whenever they choose. Seleth's wrinkled face went pale. That would affect billions of beings across hundreds of worlds. Yes. Morvan's voice was grim. And that is only what we have discovered so far. Human engineers have worked on communication networks, transportation hubs, medical facilities, food distribution systems. We do not know how deep their preparations go. The chamber fell silent. Every delegate was calculating the implications. The humans had never been military threats. Their fleet was modest, and their weapons were average. The council had always viewed them as useful partners, but never as equals. Now they realized that the humans had been building a different kind of power entirely. A sudden alert chimed from every terminal in the chamber. Emergency broadcast on all galactic channels. Jethro felt his heart sink. The humans were finally ready to speak. The display at the center of the chamber activated and a human woman appeared. She was older, perhaps 50 or 60 by human years, with silver hair pulled back from a calm face. Her eyes were steady and her voice was clear. My name is Linda Cole, she said. I am a historian, not a diplomat or a soldier. But I have been chosen to deliver this message because what I have to say is about history. She paused and seemed to look directly at every delegate in the chamber. Over the past century, humanity submitted 7 formal protests against Protocol 17. Each time, we explained that treating abandoned territory as available for seizure violated our core principles of sovereignty. Each time, the Council dismissed our concerns as the complaints of a minor species that did not understand galactic politics. Linda Cole's expression remained neutral, but her words carried weight. We understood perfectly. We understood that the Council viewed us as resources to be exploited rather than partners to be respected. We understood that our technological contributions were welcomed while our political voices were ignored. We understood that if we ever became inconvenient, Protocol 17 would be used to strip away everything we had built. She leaned slightly forward. So we prepared. For 60 years, we prepared. We embedded ourselves in your systems not to destroy them, but to ensure that you could never take from us without consequences. We left our worlds not because we were weak, but because we wanted to see what you would do. When you thought we could not fight back, the chamber was absolutely still. Not a single delegate moved. You activated Protocol 17 within 3 days of our departure. You sent occupation forces to claim our homes before you even investigated why we left. You proved exactly what we always suspected. The Council does not see us as equals. The Council sees us as prey. Linda Cole straightened. We are not prey. We have never been prey. And now you know it. She provided coordinates to a location in deep space and explained that the Council could send one unarmed diplomatic vessel if they wished to discuss terms. Then the transmission ended. Jethro looked around the chamber at his fellow counselors. Some were angry. Some were frightened. Some were already calculating how to blame others for this disaster. Ziron stood abruptly. This is an act of war. We should send the full fleet and crush these arrogant humans once and for all. Seleth shook her ancient head. With what ships? The humans control our navigation systems, our communication networks, our banking infrastructure. Any fleet we send might find itself flying blind into a trap far worse than anything we have seen so far. Then what do you suggest? Ziron demanded. Seleth looked at him with eyes that had seen empires rise and fall. I suggest we do what we should have done from the beginning. I suggest we listen. Jethro rose from his seat. He felt old in a way that had nothing to do with his centuries of life. I will lead the diplomatic delegation, he said quietly. I voted against Protocol 17. Perhaps the humans will remember that he left the chamber without looking back. Behind him, the Council continued to argue, but the arguments no longer mattered. The humans had changed everything, and the only question now was whether the Council was wise enough to accept it. The emergency lights had been flashing for 3 days straight, and Counselor Jethro was tired of looking at them. He stood at the center of the great chamber where the Galactic Council held its sessions and watched as delegates from 40 different species argued with each other about something none of them truly understood. The humans were gone. Every single one of them had vanished without a word, and nobody could explain how or why. Jethro had served on the Council for over 200 years. He had seen species rise and fall. He had witnessed wars that burned across entire star systems and peace treaties that lasted for generations. But he had never seen anything like this. The humans had been part of galactic civilization for only 3 centuries, a short time by Council standards. They had always been quiet partners who kept to themselves and traded fairly and never caused much trouble. Now their seats in the chamber sat empty, and their worlds had gone dark. Fleet Commander Ziron approached him with heavy steps. The Kalthani officer was massive, standing nearly 3 meters tall with armored plates covering his gray skin. His people were warriors who valued strength above all else. and Ziran had never hidden his contempt for the smaller human species. Now there was something close to confusion in his deep-set eyes. "We have confirmed reports from 17 human systems," Ziran said. "All of them are the same. The humans packed their belongings and boarded their ships and left. They did not fight. They did not send distress calls. They simply departed." Yethrol felt a chill run through his thin frame. How does an entire species just leave? Ziran shook his massive head. They were always strange creatures. Perhaps they finally realized they did not belong among the greater powers of the galaxy. From across the chamber, a younger delegate named Nerith hurried toward them. She was Varani like Yethrol, with the same pale blue skin and large dark eyes, but she lacked his centuries of experience. What she had instead was enthusiasm that sometimes bordered on recklessness. "Counselor," she said breathlessly, "we found something." The last recorded message from Ambassador Kevin Morris. Yethrol straightened. "Show me." They moved to one of the display terminals along the chamber wall. Nerith activated the recording, and the image of a human male appeared before them. Kevin Morris looked exactly as Yethrol remembered him. He was middle-aged by human standards, with graying hair at his temples and calm brown eyes that always seemed to be studying everything around him. In the recording, he sat at his desk reviewing documents with no sign of distress or urgency. Trade shipments from the outer colonies are running 2% above projected figures, Morris said in the recording. The agricultural exchange program with the Varani continues to exceed expectations. I recommend we expand the partnership to include medical research facilities in the coming fiscal year. The recording ended. Yethrol stared at the empty space where the human's image had been. "That is all?" he asked. Nerith nodded. That was his final report, submitted 6 hours before every human vessel began withdrawing from their stations. There is nothing unusual in it. No warnings. No explanations. Ziran made a sound of disgust. They fled from something. Some disease or internal conflict they were too proud to admit. The humans always thought they were special. Perhaps whatever killed them proved otherwise. Yethrol did not respond. He was remembering conversations he had with Kevin Morris over the years. The human ambassador had always been polite and professional, but there had been moments when Yethrol sensed something beneath the surface, a patience that went deeper than courtesy, a watchfulness that never quite relaxed. The council session resumed and the arguments grew louder. Representatives from the Kelthani demanded immediate investigation of human space. Delegates from the Dothrani suggested that the humans might have encountered some new threat in deep space and that the council should prepare defenses. Others proposed waiting for more information before taking action. Finally, Ziran stood and addressed the full assembly. His voice echoed through the chamber like rolling thunder. "The humans have abandoned their territories," he declared. Under Protocol 17 of the Galactic Charter, unclaimed space reverts to Council administration. I propose we activate this protocol immediately and secure the human systems before some other power claims them. Yethrol rose to object. Protocol 17 was designed for extinction events. We have no evidence that the humans are extinct. They may return. Ziran turned to face him with something like pity in his expression. Counselor, the humans controlled over 40 inhabited worlds. Do you truly believe an entire species would abandon 40 worlds if they intended to return? Whatever happened to them, they are not coming back. Their technology, their resources, their infrastructure, all of it now sits unprotected. We would be fools not to claim it. The chamber erupted in debate. Yethrol tried to speak reason, but his voice was lost among the shouting. He caught Nerith's eye across the room and saw his own concern reflected in her face. Something about this felt wrong. The humans had always been careful planners. They did not make hasty decisions. Why would they leave everything behind? But the council was not interested in questions. They were interested in opportunity. The vote was called and Protocol 17 passed by a narrow margin. Ziran smiled with satisfaction as the results were announced. Within the hour, Kalthani warships were being dispatched to the nearest human systems. Occupation forces would follow close behind. As the session ended, Nearith approached Yethrol again. Her expression was troubled. Counselor, she said quietly, I have been studying human history since the withdrawal began. Did you know that they have a saying about creatures that run away? Yethrol looked at her. What saying? Nearith hesitated. They say that sometimes the most dangerous thing in the forest is not the predator that roars. It is the prey that goes silent. Yethrol felt that chill again, deeper this time. He watched through the chamber windows as the first Kalthani ships launched toward human space. The council believed they were claiming abandoned territory. They believed the humans had simply given up and disappeared. But Yethrol remembered Kevin Morris sitting at his desk, calm and composed, filing routine reports right up until the moment every human in the galaxy vanished. That was not the behavior of a species in crisis. That was the behavior of a species following a plan. He wanted to call the ships back. He wanted to warn Ziran that they might be making a terrible mistake. But Protocol 17 had been activated, and the Council had spoken. Whatever was waiting in human space, they would discover it soon enough. The emergency lights continued to flash, and Yethrol stood alone in the empty chamber, wondering if the Council had just walked into a trap that the humans had been building for longer than anyone could imagine. Captain Vethmora had conquered 12 worlds in her career, and she had never seen anything like New Canton. The human colony stretched across rolling green hills beneath a golden sun, and every building stood intact. Every road was clean. Every power station hummed with energy. The humans had left their world in perfect condition, as if they expected guests to arrive. She stood on the landing platform outside the main administrative complex and watched her soldiers spread through the empty streets. The Kalthani occupation force numbered 3,000, and they had come prepared for anything except this. There was nothing to fight. There was nothing to secure. The humans had simply walked away and left the doors unlocked behind them. Lieutenant Urine approached with a data tablet clutched in her slender Varani hands. Her scientific curiosity had turned to unease over the past 2 days. Captain, she said, the agricultural systems are still running. The water treatment facilities are operational. Even the entertainment networks are broadcasting, though there is no one left to watch them. Vethmora frowned. Why would they leave everything functional? I do not know. Urine glanced around nervously. But there is something else. I have been searching their data archives for any information about the withdrawal. Everything has been wiped clean. Personnel files, government records, scientific research, all of it erased. Everything? Almost everything. Urine held up the tablet. They left one file behind. It appears to be a children's song. Vethmora took the tablet and read the words on the screen. It was a simple rhyme about hiding and seeking, about counting to 10 while others disappeared, about searching for friends who did not want to be found. The lyrics ended with a single phrase that made her scales prickle with discomfort. Ready or not, here I come. She handed the tablet back without comment. Continue your analysis. Report anything unusual. Sergeant Krau arrived from the Eastern District with his Dothrani ground troops. The Dothrani were compact and muscular, with thick hide that could withstand most projectile weapons. Krau was one of the best soldiers in the occupation force, but even he looked disturbed. Captain, he said, we found a school building near the residential zone. The classrooms were arranged for lessons that were never taught. There was food in the cafeteria, still fresh under preservation fields. It was like the children simply stood up and walked out in the middle of the day. Vethmora said nothing. She was starting to understand that the humans had not fled in panic. They had executed a withdrawal with military precision, leaving behind just enough to make the occupation forces comfortable. Just enough to make them careless. That night the problems began. The first incident was small. A navigation beacon on the far side of the colony started broadcasting incorrect coordinates. A Kelthani patrol shuttle followed the signal and nearly flew into an asteroid that had not appeared on any chart. The pilot managed to correct course at the last moment, but the shuttle sustained damage that would take days to repair. The second incident was worse. Communication arrays across the colony suddenly shifted frequencies without warning. The new frequencies matched the feeding calls of void creatures that lived in the space between systems. Within hours, 3 of the massive predators emerged from subspace near the planet. The Kelthani fleet drove them away, but lost 2 escort vessels in the process. By morning, Sergeant Kral's platoon had entered a sealed facility to investigate power fluctuations. The doors locked behind them. The atmospheric processors shut down. 40 soldiers suffocated before anyone could cut through the reinforced walls to reach them. Vethmara stood over the bodies of her soldiers and felt something she had not experienced in decades of warfare. Fear. She summoned Lieutenant Urine to her command post. The Varani scientist arrived looking exhausted and pale. "Tell me what is happening," Vethmara demanded. Urine spread her hands helplessly. "The infrastructure is attacking us. Not with weapons, but with itself. The navigation systems, the communication arrays, the environmental controls, they have all been modified. They treat us as errors in the system, malfunctions to be corrected. The humans did this deliberately?" "Yes," Urine's voice trembled. "These modifications were made years ago, perhaps decades. They planned for this. They knew that someday someone would try to take their worlds, and they prepared accordingly." Vethmara turned to the window and stared out at the peaceful colony that had become a death trap. The buildings looked so innocent in the morning light. The gardens bloomed with flowers that the humans had planted and tended and then abandoned. Everything was beautiful and everything was waiting to kill her. Soldiers. She opened a communication channel to the fleet command and requested an immediate connection to the Galactic Council. When Counselor Yethrol's face appeared on the screen, she did not waste time with formalities. "Protocol 17 was a mistake," she said flatly. "The humans wanted us to activate it. They left their worlds functional because they wanted us to occupy them. Every system we inherit comes with hidden modifications, designed to destroy anyone who tries to use it." Yethrol's expression grew grave. "How many have you lost?" 43 confirmed deaths. 7 ships damaged or destroyed. "And we have only been here for 2 weeks." There was silence on the channel. Other council members were listening now, their faces appearing in smaller windows around the screen. Counselor Vethmara continued, "I need to know. How many other occupation forces have been deployed?" Yethrol checked something outside the frame. 17 worlds are currently under Protocol 17 administration. Contact all of them immediately. Tell them to evacuate non-essential personnel and touch nothing unless absolutely necessary. The humans did not leave us empty worlds. They left us a trap designed to punish anyone greedy enough to take what was not theirs. She ended the transmission and turned back to the window. Somewhere out there in the darkness between stars, the humans were watching. She was certain of it now. They had spent generations building this contingency, preparing for the day when the council would finally show its true nature, and the council had walked right into it. Vethmara began composing evacuation orders. She had conquered 12 worlds in her career, but she knew when she was beaten. The humans had won this battle before it even started, and she was only beginning to understand how thoroughly they had outmaneuvered everyone. The children's song echoed in her mind. "Ready or not, here I come." She wondered if the council was ready for what came next.